Misfits 08 is coming up soon, and it's time for some predictions.
Has done it from time to time. Just a bit of...
From the United Kingdom, the Nightmare.
Alright, so Misfits 08 is almost here. The main card only has 5 fights, but 2 of those fights are tag events with 4 different fighters. This is one of Misfits' smaller shows, so I understand why there might be a smaller amount of fights on this card, as well as why they're introducing this new concept of Survivor Tag. Now let's go ahead and get straight into these predictions. Up first, we're going to talk about Alan Belcher versus Hasim Rahman Jr. And my first thoughts for this fight is just... why? I don't understand why this fight is happening. Hasim Rahman Jr. is just set on fighting these heavyweight MMA fighters, it seems like. And last time around against Greg Hardy, it did not go his way. So it's really confusing to me on why he is taking this type of fight, because it seems very familiar to his last loss. This is another heavyweight fighter. He has UFC experience, and he is the current bare knuckle fighting championship heavyweight division champion. I don't know too much about him. I went ahead and looked at some of his fights, and the dude is pretty scary. He doesn't have the greatest technique out there, but he definitely has some knockout power and can move pretty good for a guy his size. Hasim Rahman Jr. is not a heavyweight fighter. But in terms of boxing ability, the edge definitely goes to Hasim for this fight. So I really see 2 possible outcomes for this fight, and that's Hasim Rahman Jr. by a decision, where he will just outbox him for the majority of the fight, leading to a decision, sticking on the outside and using his technical ability. The other option is that Alan catches him with a huge right hand, has crazy power, and he gets Hasim out of there by a knockout. I can see this happening due to this man's size and power, and it's kind of a toss-up for me on this one, but I am gonna go ahead and say Hasim Rahman Jr. by a decision. These Misfits fights don't go many rounds, so I'm going to go ahead and give this to Hasim and say that he can last the whole fight, stay technical, and keep this thing at a distance, winning by a decision, outlanding for a majority of the fight. That's my prediction for this one. Another fight on this card, probably my favorite one, is Anthony Taylor versus Paul Bamba. Now, I wasn't overly impressed with Paul in his last fight on the Misfits card. He went up against Chris Avila, who does kind of remind me of a fighter like Anthony Taylor. Similar fighting styles there. Both guys with MMA backgrounds who are gonna push the pace, and I think I see that happening in this fight. I feel like Anthony Taylor is going to take this one. I think he's gonna be a little bit reckless in there, bring an awkward fight style to a guy like Paul, who has more of a traditional boxing fight style. I see him getting overwhelmed. I think this one's going to go to a decision. I think it's going to be a close fight, so I'm not super confident in this pick, but I am going to go with Anthony Taylor by a decision. I think he's going to push the pace of the fight, and like I said for the last one, these fights don't have many rounds. I think it's only 4 rounds. So I think Anthony Taylor is going to take these first few rounds, and Paul will not have the time to catch up to get used to the pace of the fight. That's why I'm going with Anthony Taylor by a decision. Alright, so there is another fight on the main card between Action Man and Brandon Herrera. But honestly, I don't really know too much about these guys, and I couldn't really find that much footage on them. So I don't really have enough to make a prediction for this one, so I kind of am just going to leave this one out. Who knows how this fight's going to go? I don't really think they're that experienced. let's move on. All right, up next we have a tag team match between Dean the Great and a mystery partner versus the YPG tag team. I'm pretty sure that's what the other team's going by. That's what's on the poster, so I'm going with that. And honestly, pretty quick prediction for this one. I see Dean the Great's team winning this one pretty easily. We don't know who Dean's partner is, but as long as he is someone decent, I see them getting the job done here. I pop on the other team already got pieced up by Waleed in their fight, and I would expect Dean the Great to do the same thing. I don't think the mystery opponent matters that much. I think Dean could carry them regardless to this win. I think he's better than both the other fighters. So I'm going to go ahead and say this one ends by a stoppage, and let's go with the third round. All right, and finally the main event, Misfits' new Survivor tag featuring 4 fighters: Nick Lamau, Swarms, B-Dave, and Ryan Johnston. And in my other video covering the announcement of this event, I said that I thought Nick Lamau was going to win this one. So I do see Nick still taking this win, but I think Swarms could actually cause a good amount of problems in this fight. Swarms is getting better and better in each fight. This is a little bit of a step down in competition, in my opinion, from his last fight against Deji. These guys are more his speed. I think it will allow him to implement more of a game plan and fight at the pace he wants to, because I do think his opponents are going to give him more respect. But we already know Nick's toughness from his first fight against Jay Swingler, and 100% he has improved since that fight. I expect to see a new and improved version of himself. We know he has the toughness. Now I want to see him improve on the technique. And that's exactly what I believe we're going to see from him in this fight. From B-Dave, I see him just swinging some heavy shots. I don't think B-Dave is the best technically, and I don't think B-Dave has the best gas tank as well, which could end up hurting him, as I think this fight is going to be very fast paced. I don't see B-Dave knocking out someone like Swarms or Nick, so I do think he's going to end up gassing out or end up getting pieced up by a more technical fighter. Ryan Johnston is probably the guy I know the least about. I don't know how much he has improved since his last fight. I expect him to be on a similar level to the rest of the guys. It's really hard to predict this fight actually, because we've never seen it before, and it's hard to know how it's gonna go. But my top 2 guys for this fight are Swarms and Nick Lamau, and I ultimately see Nick winning this fight by a decision, I guess. I don't think everyone's gonna be eliminated except him. Maybe 1 or 2 other guys might get finished, but I see some of them going the distance, and I see Nick winning this one by a decision. That's what I'm going with, and that's what I'm sticking with. What are your guys' predictions for Misfits 08? Do you think this Misfits Survivor tag will go well? Let me know. Subscribe for more boxing content and updates. The support is much appreciated. Thank you for watching. Peace.